Well, it's 5:30 actually, but now just turned 5:31. Let's admit somebody else here. Okay. All right. Oh, we got more people. It's good. Okay, good. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Neighbor. I'm the city engineer for our city of Des Moines here. And I've got Corey Bogenreef, who's our principal traffic engineer. We're excited to present to you tonight the East Court Avenue reconstruction project. And really the focus is between the Des Moines River up to East 15th Street. So Corey, if you could advance the slides. We've got a handful of city staff though on with us as well. From our design section as well as traffic and transportation division. I also want to thank I see our Councilmember Carl Voss joining us as well. So thanks everyone for joining us this evening. It's beautiful sunny evening, but it is warm out. So hopefully everyone's in an air conditioned place to listen to this to our meeting here. And we appreciate you joining us virtually. And we are using Zoom, and so we're running this meeting similar to our city council meetings. That in order to run the meeting orderly, we ask that you raise your hand if you have a question, and hopefully you see a menu bar like what you see on the screen there, where you can actually click on the participants tab. You can see that little red box around that participants tab there, and that'll give you when you see your name there, it'll give you an option to raise your hand and mute and unmute yourself. If you're on a phone. And I'm not seeing anybody on a phone right now, but now it's just in case. Please press *9 to raise your hand, *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute yourself. So if you're on a phone, *9 and *6. But otherwise, if you're those of you on a computer or a smart device, you should be able to see the Zoom menu bar at the bottom there. So. All right, and so we're here to talk about the East Court Avenue reconstruction project. The project actually stems from it kind of comes from a few different planning efforts. First, the pavement condition of East Court Avenue between the river, the Des Moines River Bridge, and East 14th Street, it warrants full reconstruction. Okay, so the pavement condition that was the driver of the project initially, was the pavement condition, poor pavement condition warrants reconstruction. There also is several, when we do what's called an alteration, as defined by our federal government through the Americans with Disabilities Act, we also take the time to upgrade our sidewalk curb ramps to meet the compliance for the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that's one thing. So through our pavement management planning process, the pavement needs reconstruction. Also, the city has a transportation master plan, Move DSM, and kind of a component of that transportation master plan is Connect Downtown, which is essentially our master plan for our downtown planning efforts. And our goal for the city is to provide a transportation network that's safe for all users, motorists, pedestrians, transit users, bicyclists, all users. And so that's the main vision and focus of what our goal is for our traffic and transportation folks who do the planning and engineering here. And so when we reconstruct a street, that gives us the opportunity to identify and make geometric improvements to that street. And that's what we'll have Corey cover those more in detail in a bit here. But essentially, Connect Downtown, our transportation master plan, we had some nationally known transportation planning firms and traffic modeling firms do a number of analyses through the downtown and identify some issues that improvements that could be done to the streets, again, to make them safe for all users. And this street particularly was identified, it had areas that were challenging to cross and areas that were, that this is also a location to provide more connectivity for our bicycle network. And so through the planning process, this area has been identified for lane reductions, and over time, our street network changes. And so I think years ago, Court Avenue did function differently than it does now. And so that need for the extra lanes is is not there, and it's not there supported by traffic numbers. It's not there by modeling, and having the extra lanes is not good for when we talk about, we identify here that we have issues with pedestrian crossings. And so we've got some improvements that we want to make. And so the limits of reconstruction are from the River Bridge up to East 14th, as shown on the screen here. And then again, we don't want to just end our connectivity. We want to focus on connectivity as well. So we'd like to do some restriping across the bridge, and then also restriping across over to East 15th to provide connectivity for our bicycle network there. So Corey, if you can go to the next slide, please. And again, this is a slide that shows the condition of the streets there. You can see sidewalk curb ramps that are not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act there. Okay, next slide, Corey, please. And Corey, I'm going to turn it over to Corey Bogenreef. Again, I talked to him generally about where this project stemmed from. And I'm going to have Corey talk about the existing conditions, and then go into the details of what from our analyses, what was planned to connect downtown, and what we're proposing based off those plans. So, all right, Corey.
All right, thanks, Steve. Again, as Steve introduced me, my name is Corey Bogenreef, and I'm a principal traffic engineer at the city of Des Moines. And so Steve touched a little bit on some of the existing conditions. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on a few of the details of the project. But as Steve mentioned, really the Court Avenue it has 2 lanes eastbound and 1 lane westbound. And really that cross section doesn't fit with today's traffic. And it doesn't fit with what the traffic projections has told us. So this is a picture just looking west between East 1st and East 2nd to get you kind of a feel for the corridor. And this graph or table kind of shows the average daily traffic through the year. So the most recent data here in the top, and as you go down, over the past 20 years, and there's been some minor fluctuations in the traffic, but in general, it's been fairly steady, and if not decreasing slightly. And part of the reason I think for that is the MLK corridor being built, where previous to the MLK corridor being built, a lot of the east-west traffic used these downtown core streets like Grand and East Court. And so I think some of that extra lane capacity and those commuters have kind of moved over to the MLK corridor. So it kind of allows us to reassess what this cross section is on East Court. Just a few other existing conditions is up by the Capitol, we have a few offset intersections, specifically Finkbein Drive and Day Street. And what those intersections, while when the whole Capitol complex was built, from an aerial, these streets look really nice. The problem is when you're driving them, they tend to be a bit confusing and can create some safety concerns. This top picture here on the right shows Day Street as it comes into East Court. And so, it's a little bit confusing for drivers, and it also requires this really wide street. So you typically your street would be, say anywhere between 26 to maybe 50 feet if it was a wide, had multiple lanes. Well, here the intersection is about 230 feet. So it's really wide. It's not pedestrian friendly, and it makes difficult for drivers maneuvering at the intersection. It also, you can see here, because it's kind of a free movement. So it's not really a T intersection where you come up and stop. And so it's yield controlled, which is kind of inconsistent for the corridor. Wanted to talk too about kind of what's going on in the area and how this East Court project fits in with everything happening in the area. This just kind of shows some of the connectivity. The East Court corridor is shown in the dashed red line. the existing bike facilities or network are shown in the solid green. So you have East Grand, Walnut Street, East 6th from Court down to MLK, and then you have the River Walk and the trails there. There's also some planned bike networks, the core network here continuing on East 6th to the north, East 4th through this new market district, which I'll touch on in a second, as well as a planned pedestrian corridor in the future through the market district. So there's East Court kind of provides a lot of connectivity here through downtown. It kind of connects, that east side to all these different facilities. And one other thing I want to mention here is all the other projects that are happening, specifically the market district. As some of you may know, there's a lot of development happening. A lot of the city public works facilities are moving out of there, opening up space for development, which is exciting. But it also, requires a lot of construction and a lot of updating of our infrastructure. So all of these orange dashed streets, those are all projects that the city will be undertaking as part of the development of this area. So as you can see, that's 5 different streets that will be under construction. You also have these purple dash streets that will be constructed by development. So this whole kind of purple area is kind of the market district development area, blocks that are being redeveloped. And then these are the streets that are being redeveloped. And then you also have a planned future park on the site currently owned by Mid-American Energy. So there's a lot going on down here. And I'll talk a little bit at the end about kind of how we're coordinating all these, but just wanted to give everyone some context for what's happening and how East Court fits into this project. So with that, I'm going to kind of talk about what we're proposing on this project. And we've kind of broke it into 3 different chunks. And so I'll just talk about the corridor as a whole. Steve mentioned Move DSM, and this street in our street topologies are different classifications for streets. East Court fits in as a downtown street, and it's currently a truck route and a bike route, but it's not an emergency vehicle route and it's not a transit route. So it's an important corridor, but it doesn't have a few of the different multimodal elements or different routes that you see on some other streets. I'm going to focus on the western portion from Water Street, which is just east or just west of the Des Moines River over to East 5th. So currently between Water Street and East 3rd, there's back and angle parking, and you have, again, these 3 travel lanes and then parallel parking on the north side. So you have about a 69-foot roadway. And so what we're proposing from Water Street to East 2nd is narrowing that up. We'll maintain the back and angle parking on the bridge and on the block from East 1st to East 2nd. And we'll be reallocating some of that space to buffered bike lanes. So you'd have a 5-foot bike lane with a 3-foot buffer, narrowing the travel lanes from 12.5 or 14 feet down to 10 feet to try to slow drivers down. And we'll be maintaining that parallel parking on the north side. I'll show walk through the detail here on the next slide as well. And I'll talk about the stretch from East 2nd to East 5th. Again, between East 2nd and East 3rd, there's actually the back end angle parking. So this isn't, it's more, the existing is more this cross section, but from between East 4th and East 5th, we have this cross section where you have the 3 travel lanes and parallel parking on either side. So what we're proposing is to, again, eliminate one of those eastbound lanes and reallocate that space to buffered bike lanes. So you'd have the parallel parking the narrower travel lanes, and the 5-foot bike lane with a 3-foot buffer. So this slide kind of shows the detail. Those were the cross sections. This is actually the plan view of what's happening. So as Steve mentioned, the restriping, the bridge will be restriped, and again, we'll keep that back end angle parking maintained here, and then in front of the police station, the back end angle parking will remain. And then as you get east of East 2nd Street, that's when we have this kind of typical cross section of a lane in either direction and the buffered bike lanes. So we'll be adding along with the buffered bike lanes, we'll be adding the green pavement markings, which will be similar to what you see on East Grand currently, and what we're proposing on a few other corridors on the west side of downtown. We'll also be constructing bump outs at all the intersections. And what the bump outs will do is they, first of all, they shadow the parking lane. So kind of to delineate where that space is, where the parking lane is, but they also provide, you know, a reduction in the pedestrian crossing width. So instead of having to cross, you know, multiple lanes of traffic, you know, it kind of provides that refuge and a little less crossing distance for pedestrians. We'll also be installing where we're impacting sidewalks, and kind of the area next to the street. We'll be installing some of the standard streetscape elements, including street trees where possible. One of the biggest things from the bridge over to East 7th will actually be reducing the speed limit from, it's currently posted at 30 miles an hour. We'll be reducing that to 25 miles per hour. And for reconstruction projects, we typically use a few different metrics to analyze speed and see, you know, is the existing speed limit, does it meet the needs of the existing roadway, the existing traffic, and the existing context of the street. And so based on those metrics, it was recommended to lower the speed limit 5 miles per hour from 30 to 25. I'll just touch on, I talked a little bit about the changes to parking. The back and angle parking on the south side from East 2nd to East 3rd will be removed and replaced with parallel parking. So about 6 spaces will be lost there. And then from East 4th to East 5th on the north side, in order to get the bike lanes through and not have to widen the road out, we'll be removing a few spaces there. The decision to remove those spaces really comes down to kind of the adjacent land use, which is a parking lot. So that there's plenty of parking in this area, and city staff felt that removing that parking wasn't a detriment to parking in the area.
And Corey, also, you know, our traffic and transportation division are the ones that do the collections, and that stretch there, as our staff would that do the collections would tell you, they very, very rarely need to visit that stretch, to put it to you that way. So the parking in that block that you just pointed out is not really even used that much. So. Yep.
Thank you, Steve. So that's kind of the first chunk of the project. I'm gonna kind of move farther to the east, and we'll look at East 5th to over to Day Street. So from East 5th to East 7th is still kind of in this core downtown area, and the existing cross section there's about 45 feet. So you have the parallel parking on either side with the 3 travel lanes. What we're proposing in this stretch is to eliminate the parking and between East 5th and East 6th. And I'll show you here in a second in a little more detail. That's some more of the parking area that isn't heavily utilized. And in this stretch, we're actually proposing a 2-way left turn lane or left turn lanes. And the reason for that is really what I spoke about earlier, all the development happening kind of south of here in the Market District. Some of the traffic projections, traffic's projected to grow as that development grows. And one of the main ways for people that don't necessarily live down in this area, or people who are coming and going, one of the main ways to get there is from Interstate 235. And so that access is off of East 6th and East 7th, or eventually turns into Penn. And so that left turn lane is necessary on this 2-block stretch to kind of help facilitate some of that projected traffic growth in this stretch. But as we get farther to the east on East 7th, where there is an existing 3-lane cross section and just your conventional bike lanes with no buffer, traffic isn't projected to grow as much. And so this road is really overbuilt for what is needed. And so we can actually eliminate that 2-way left turn lane and narrow the road to reallocate some space to the bike lane and actually have a buffered bike lane. So we propose to go from kind of this conventional bike lane as you kind of go up north towards, or east towards the Capitol, with just 2 travel lanes and the buffered bike lane. And so, as I mentioned, this is a plan view. And I should note that I didn't say this on the last plan view, but these blue ovals, those are the 2016 traffic volumes for this stretch. So yeah, we're expecting some traffic growth and the need for these turn lanes for access into the Market District for traffic flow. But again, we'll be removing that one eastbound lane. We'll have the buffered bike lanes with the green paint up to East 7th, and then again, buffered bike lanes as you go farther east without the green paint as you kind of get up towards the Capitol. We'll be installing again some of those downtown streetscape elements where possible, where we're impacting the sidewalk. From East 7th, again, back to the west, we'll be reducing that speed limit from 30 to 25 miles an hour. To the east, as you go up the hill, the existing speed limit is actually 35 miles per hour. With some of these changes, we're proposing, again, to lower that speed limit 5 miles per hour from 35 down to 30. As Steve mentioned, and I mentioned, this stretch between East 5th and East 6th will be removing some not very heavily used parking spaces. And this stretch between East 6th and East 7th, there actually is currently no on-street parking. The last thing I will point out is the realignment that we're proposing of Thinkvine Drive to provide a T intersection and kind of reduce that intersection width, and it gets a little bit easier for folks making that turning movement. The last stretch I'll talk about is from Day Street up through East 15th Street. And so this stretch from Day Street to East 14th Court is kind of the area around a lot of the parking lots at the Capitol complex. And so there's quite a bit of turning traffic there. And so what we are proposing is to the current cross section includes a 2-way left turn lane again. So traveling in either direction, and conventional bike lanes. And we're proposing to maintain that cross section with the 3 travel lanes, but widen out slightly to allow for wider bike lane and this buffer area to give cyclists that extra space between the travel lanes. And as you head further east from East Court to East 14th Street, there's currently 2 travel lanes and a median In that area, we're proposing to reduce the width or reallocate some of that space to the buffered bike lanes, and then we'll be maintaining just one lane of travel. And this area gets a little goofy. I'll show you on the next slide because of the reconstruction limit. So as I mentioned, from Day Street to East 13th Court, we'll be maintaining that 3-lane cross section, but be adding the buffered bike lane instead of the conventional bike lane. One of the biggest changes here is the realigning Day Street to come into 90 degrees and actually tie into the driveway that serves the judicial branch building. And so we worked with the State Department to get their buy-in on this. This does impact a couple parking spaces in this parking lot, but it provides a more traditional intersection, which will be safer, not the really wide intersection here, and it provides an opportunity for some improved sidewalk connectivity. Again, this whole stretch is currently posted at 35 miles per hour, and we're proposing to lower the speed limit to 30 miles an hour. As we go east, the reconstruction limits really end within this block, and based on our traffic modeling, this existing right turn lane is still required. So we'll be maintaining that existing right turn lane, but just one lane of traffic east and west here. We'll also be maintaining this current westbound left turn lane onto East 14th. This stretch between East 14th and Johnson Court was recently reconstructed in the past 5 years or so. So we won't be reconstructing that street, but we'll be rebuilding the median to kind of allow us to reallocate some of that street width to the buffered bike lanes, and then also provide a dual left turn lane from East Court onto Johnson Court. That's kind of one of the heaviest movements at these one-way pairs. And so removing that one travel lane, this gives extra space for those vehicles to make that left turn. So one other thing I should mention, and it's not shown on this page, but I just want to mention it, that we worked with the state on a study previously at Walnut and East 13th, which is just north of the Hoover building here off the page. And there's some localized drainage issues, some flooding issues there that we will be tackling with this project as well. So that's kind of, I know there's a lot of information, a brief overview of the project. I'll talk a little bit about the schedule. Obviously we're at the virtual public meeting today. The next steps in our process, this project would go to the Transportation Safety Committee for their approval and buy-in. And that would happen sometime this summer or fall, depending on other items on that agenda. The design will be starting for this project here in June, and will go through next fall. So the current plan is that this project would bid for construction in the fall of 2022, with construction over the years of 2023 and 2024. This is a large project, so it's probably going to be split over 2 years. Now, that construction date could possibly get pushed back depending on some of the other projects that were mentioned in the market district. Just making sure that we're doing our due diligence to coordinate those projects and not having every street down here under construction. So that's the current plan on the construction as it stands today. This project, we do have a projects and studies webpage. So after this meeting, probably in a few days after we can get the recording of this presentation downloaded and up on the website, you'll be able to go to our website, dsm.city, and access a recording of this presentation, just the slides and some other general information. So if you have any other questions after the meeting, you can go to that page and see some of the details, or if somebody wasn't able to attend, it's available there. Here's the URL for the web page. Typically what I tell folks is when you get to our web page, dsm.city, there's a blue search box up at the top. If you just type in projects and studies and click the How Do I button, it'll take you right there. So with that, I will open it up to any questions. And again, as Steve mentioned, just please raise your hand if you have any questions, and we will unmute you and allow you to speak. So thank you.
While we give it time, folks time to raise their hand, again, we are in these are conceptual designs. Our next stage is to begin the detailed design process. We typically hold our public engagement early on, because we don't want to obviously spend all the time and money and effort to design something if if there's something that could come out of the public engagement interaction process that could change our design. So I know it's maybe a little unique not having all the design details, but that's we found that to be successful in delivering projects that way. Okay, and I see a hand raised from Charlie Cross. So let's.
Hi, I was just wondering, and you may have already covered this and I missed it, but do you plan to start on the west and head east, or would you start on the east and head west?
Or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't, we don't know that at this point. It would probably be, it would be phased, but we don't know that at this time. My suspicion is we'd probably start if the eastern section had the sewer work, we generally start with the underground, and that's which would be more on the east side, but we do not have that determined at this time. So.
We like that option.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I see Mike Armstrong. Okay, Mike, let's see.
Evening, everyone. Really happy to see what's laid out in the project. We were curious to see what it would look like. As it moves forward, we're always curious to see more about especially pedestrian crossings, as well as some of the north-south bike crossings. But we really like that, East Grand was a big project, but it was pretty isolated at first. So we like seeing the rest of this network start to come together. I think one question or point that I would want us to think a little further on would be the eastern edge, where it's more of a trucking route, the wider lanes, the higher speed limit. Just if we can build in some greater protection or design aspects to create a safer, more comfortable environment when the rest of this corridor looks really welcoming and fantastic. So I think that would be our one piece.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, one of the biggest points of emphasis, on this eastern end is to get the bike lane into, as you go farther east of East 15th, East Court really turns into a residential street. So trying to provide that connectivity. But I think as we get into the detailed design, we'll be taking a closer look on what those treatments are and how we can make it a little safer and more inviting for bikers through that area. So we appreciate those thoughts and pointing that out.
And we're very excited to continue to build this network and over the past couple of years and the upcoming few years, there's a number of projects to kind of build out this network downtown. As many of you know, I mean, there's a lack of connectivity downtown, especially with our bicycle network. There's no question about that. So with projects like this and projects like the 12th Street reconfiguring Cherry Street, Fifth Avenue, so the work on Grand Avenue. And then also, what you don't even see on this map, we actually have a project plan to the east of this, Dean Avenue, to try and connect into our eastern neighborhoods on the east side that would connect to this. And so we're excited to actually build out the network, and because that it's an issue is a lack of connectivity, no question. And so it's exciting to have these projects actually, some of which have already been done and others which are in motion to actually start to build an actual network, so we don't have these issues with gaps. And then you mentioned the pedestrian crossings. Yeah, this was clearly identified, and connect downtown as a street that has issues with pedestrian crossings and crossings just in general, the street, and obviously the wide multi-lane street that it is today, which probably worked years ago, but like Corey said, before Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway would exist. But now the uses are changing, and the uses are going to continue to change with the market district development. And so this project provides a lot of benefits all around for all users, and including motorists, to try and reduce the speeds to provide safer travel for our motorists as well. So thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Steve, this is Carl. For some reason, when I do your meetings, I don't have a way to raise my hand, but so I did. So are there sidewalks on Day Street?
We're able to maybe go to that section there. And Councilman, I appreciate you speaking up. I think by the Zoom default, the IT may have you set up that way because of the council meetings.
Yeah.
So they may not allow you to have the right hand.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't recall that there are sidewalks along Day.
I know there is on the east side, but let me see. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's that was one thing that we met with Charlie, who spoke earlier, who works up at the state, and some other folks. And as Steve said, yes, on the east side, there's sidewalk. You can kind of see where we're tying in. You can kind of see it under here, but there isn't on the west side.
Okay, all right.
And so the plan would be to add that for some connectivity.
So do you have a concern about pedestrian crossings from the parking lots to the south of Court Avenue, just crossing the speed when it's great you're dropping the speed from 35 to 30, but would there be any desire to even drop it further just for pedestrians?
Well, we do have at these locations, you can see, and I failed to mention that, but there are existing rectangular rapid flashing beacon crossings.
Okay.
At these locations. We had contemplated and discussed potentially moving those to mid blocks to provide some like a refuge island, and just kind of in our conversations with the state, we elected to keep those where they're at. And so there are those enhanced crossings for folks crossing in between from the south side to the north side, or vice versa.
And Corey, there is one issue that we are addressing, and I think it was probably brought up maybe in the meetings that you discussed with Charlie, but there is not a sidewalk ramp to cross over kind of to the judicial branch building today, if I remember. I think it just kind of comes around, but people do today they kind of use the driveway, I guess, if you will, to, at least from what I've observed, my kids went to the daycare just right over to the right there, and so at least that's what I would observe, is people just kind of cross the grass and then go to the driveway. So, but you're putting the ramps in, right, Corey?
Correct. Yep.
So do you engineer types like kind of crossings, or would you rather have better ones?
Well, there is not
Yeah.
Well, I'm
okay.
saying kind of, there really isn't a crossing today, so it's not a crossing. The curb is actually depressed, but it's not a crossing today.
Yeah. We
It's
should be able to do better there then, right?
yeah, that it is going to be better there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can see my screen here.
Yep, we can.
Existing, this is what it looks like existing, where there's absolutely no, I mean, you can cross there, but there's no curb ramp, and there's no curb ramp on either side. So we're proposing, to improve that and actually provide curb ramps and at the intersection.
Yeah, and then when I've been out there, the curb it's odd. It's like the curb is depressed on the northeast corner, but it's grass, and so the grass just kind of has like a worn path there. So it's not a crossing today. But people use it as one. So yeah. Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments?
All right. Well, hearing none, if anyone thinks of any comments, again, Corey, you able to go back to the page with the web, there you go. Again, if you have folks who you want to share this with, or if you think of questions later, if you could please go to the Projects and Studies webpage. Like I said, our goal is to start design here this summer of these improvements. So please share them if you think of things later. So, all right. Well, hearing none, I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you, Councilman Voss, for joining us as well, and thank you all the various members of the public and stakeholders along the corridor, members from the state. I appreciate your time and thank you so much. And everyone have a great evening. So.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.